Hello, and welcome to Sleep with Stories. Tonight, we're going to drift back in time to a world lit by oil lamps and perfumed with sandalwood and rain-soaked earth. The day ahead of us is long, filled with the quiet duties of an empress, the tedious preparations for a grand journey, and a truly staggering amount of political maneuvering disguised as polite conversation. To be perfectly honest, you probably won't make it through the day, awake that is, and that's perfectly. Alright, if you find a little peace in these quiet journeys, please consider liking this video and subscribing to Sleep with Stories. It is a small, simple gesture that helps our channel reach other minds in need of a little rest. And if you feel so inclined, we'd love for you to leave a comment telling us where in the world you're listening from and what time it is for you. It's always a quiet joy to see where our stories are landing as the world turns. Now, find a comfortable position. Let your shoulders relax. Let the concerns of your day begin to dissolve. Close your eyes. Let the world outside fade away now. Let's ease into tonight's journey. The air in the chamber is cool. Not cold, but possessed of that deep, still coolness that settles into stone just before dawn. You are in a high room, in the grand palace of Pataliputra, capital of the mighty Gupta Empire. The flame of a single brass lamp, filled with fragrant sesame oil, throws a soft, flickering light against walls of polished plaster, so smooth they feel like marble to the touch. The flame dances, a silent, lonely performer in the vast quiet, casting long, wavering shadows that make the familiar shapes of the room seem strange and new. Through a large open archway, unadorned with glass but covered by a thin, translucent curtain, the sky is not yet blue, but a deep, velvety indigo, pricked with the last few stubborn stars. The sun, it seems, has not yet been informed of its imperial duties. You are watching the Empress Devika. She is not sleeping. She sits on a woven mat of soft river reeds, her back straight, her posture one of practiced stillness. She isn't meditating in a formal sense. Her eyes are open, fixed on the shifting darkness of the world outside. Her breath is slow, and even a gentle rhythm in the profound silence of the pre-dawn hour. This is her time. The only time in the long, structured procession of her day that truly belongs to her. Before the handmaidens and the secretaries, before the priests and the petitioners, before the crushing weight of her own jewelry, there is this. Just the quiet, the cool air, and the smell of jasmine from the gardens below, a sweet, ghostly scent carried on the faintest of breezes. This palace, this city, is a place of immense power and wealth, and this particular piece is bought by 1,000 guards, each one standing sentinel in the sleeping courtyards, hoping you don't actually need them. Slowly, as if being drawn by an unseen hand, she rises. Her bare feet make no sound on the cool patterned floor. She glides towards the archway, her simple, unadorned nightrobe of white cotton trailing behind her like a whisper. She pushes aside the thin curtain, its fabric as light as a moth's wing, and steps onto the balcony. The air here is even cooler, carrying the damp, clean scent of the nearby Ganges River. Below, the sprawling city of Pataliputra is a vast, sleeping creature of wood and brick. From this height, it looks so orderly, a grid of dark rooftops and shadowed avenues. It's a comforting illusion, one best not examined too closely before breakfast. The city was, as the traveling scholar Faxian from far-off China had recently noted, one of the most prosperous in the known world. A hub of art, science, and trade. Hospitals here offered free care to the poor, and the government was, by the standards of the age, remarkably gentle. A major historical fact of the era is that the Gupta administration did not use capital punishment, favoring fines instead. A leniency that was almost unheard of. It created a sense of civic safety that was the envy of other kingdoms, but the Empress knows that order is a fragile thing. It is a garden constantly in need of tending, lest the weeds of ambition and discontent take root. She leans her hands on the carved stone balustrade, the stone gritty and cool beneath her palms. Down in the palace gardens, she can just make out the shape of the coupe screens being prepared for the day large, woven mats of vetiver grass that the servants will soon sprinkle with water. As the hot afternoon winds blow through them, they will release a cool, earthy, fragrant mist, nature's own ingenious air conditioning. It is a small, simple thing, yet it is one of the profound luxuries of her life. Historians are not entirely certain about the exact layout of the Gupta royal palaces, as they were often built of magnificent, carved wood which has long since returned to the earth, unlike the stone and brick of the era's temples. We are left to imagine these balconies, these private chambers, piecing them together from poetry and the accounts of visitors who were, more often than not, trying to impress their own rulers back home. A single bird chirps, then another. It is the first hesitant conversation of the coming day. The Empress closes her eyes, breathing it in. This moment of quiet is the foundation upon which the noise of the day will be built. It is her shield, her secret. And now it is ending. The sky in the east is beginning to blush, a soft, pale pink spreading along the horizon. The day is coming for her, and it will not be gentle. The first sound from within the chamber is a soft cough, a polite and almost apologetic announcement of presence. The Empress Devika does not turn from the balcony. She has already felt the shift in the air, the subtle change that comes with other people, other energies entering her space. Two handmaidens, young women named Leila and Padma, glide into the room. They move with a silent, practiced grace that suggests they have performed this exact sequence of tasks 1,000 times, and are perhaps, deep down, just a little bored of it all. One moves to a large wooden chest, its panels inlaid with ivory, and begins to lay out clothes and jewels. The other approaches a series of ornate clay and copper vessels, preparing the necessities for the morning ritual. Devika turns from the lightning sky and walks back into the room. She gives a small, faint smile to the women, a gesture of acknowledgement that is both warm and distant. There are no words. There is no need for them. This is a dance, and everyone knows the steps. She sits on a low, carved wooden stool as Padma approaches, carrying a silver basin of warm water. The water is not plain. It is infused with a fragrant blend of crushed rose petals and sandalwood, its steam rising to perfume the air. With a soft cloth, Padma begins to gently wash the Empress's face and hands. The ritual has begun. This is the start of the Sola Shringer, the 16 traditional steps of adornment for a woman of status, a process designed to celebrate and enhance beauty from head to toe. It is a major cultural touchstone of ancient and classical India, a ritual that elevates the act of getting dressed into a form of art. First, the bath. Devika will be led to an adjoining chamber, a room with heated floors and a large sunken pool filled with herb-infused water. After that, she will be anointed with fragrant oils, her long, dark hair washed and perfumed with hibiscus and amla. It is a slow, methodical process, a world away from a frantic modern shower. Back in the main chamber, swathed in a simple cotton wrap, she sits before a large, polished bronze mirror. The reflection is clear, but soft, lacking the sharp, unforgiving clarity of modern glass. It is a kinder, more poetic version of herself that looks back. Leila approaches with a small stone bowl. Inside is upton, a thick, fragrant paste of turmeric, chickpea flour, sandalwood powder, and milk cream. This is the ancient secret to glowing skin, a cleanser and exfoliant used for centuries. Leila applies it gently to her arms, neck, and face, her fingers moving in slow circular motions. The scent is earthy and sweet. While the general idea of Upton is well known, historians know that the precise ingredients and recipes for such cosmetics varied immensely by region and social standing, and many of the exact formulas used in the Good de Court are now lost to time. After the paste is gently washed away, the adornment continues. Her hair, now dry and shining, is brushed with a comb made of rosewood, its teeth carefully smoothed so as not to snag a single strand. It is then intricately braided, woven with strands of fresh jasmine flowers and strings of tiny seed pearls. Next comes the application of makeup. Padma holds a small container, and using a thin, elegant rod made of antimony called a salaka, she carefully applies a line of black kohl or kyle to the Empress's eyelids. It is a dramatic, defining gesture, making her dark eyes seem even larger and more expressive. A red bindi, a perfect circle made from kumkum powder, is placed on her forehead, a symbol of her marital status and a focus of spiritual energy. Then comes the clothing. A silk choli, a fitted blouse, is tied securely, then the sari. It is a magnificent creation, woven in Varanasi from the finest silk, its color the deep blue of a twilight sky. The borders are embroidered with real gold thread and a pattern of lotus flowers. Lala and Padma work together, pleating the vast length of fabric with expert precision before wrapping it elegantly around her body. The decorated end, the pallu, draped gracefully over her shoulder. Finally, the jewelry. Bracelets of gold and carved ivory are slid onto her wrists. A heavy, intricate necklace of gold, studded with emeralds and pearls, is fastened around her neck. Earrings, shaped like peacocks, are clipped to her lobes, and a delicate chain with a single pearl is arranged along the part in her hair. Each piece is a work of art, but together they are heavy. It is the weight of an empire expressed in gold and gems. And it is, frankly, a little much for what feels like an early morning dot as the final bracelet is clasped. A male secretary, robed in simple white, appears at the door. He bows low, not quite meeting her eyes, and begins to recite the day's agenda. In a soft monotone, there is a meeting with the treasurer about grain yields in the western provinces, an audience with a delegation of Buddhist monks, a review of the plans for a new reservoir, and a final inspection of the preparations for the imperial tour to Eugene. It is a litany of duties and pronouncements designed to make even the most resolute empress wish for a quiet afternoon of just staring at a wall. She simply nods, her face a mask of serene neutrality. The day has her now. The quiet, cool freedom of the dawn as a distant memory. Breakfast is a quiet, solitary affair taken in a small, sun-drenched room adjacent to her private chambers. The meal is not a grand banquet, but a simple, elegant arrangement. A bowl of warm, sweetened rice porridge, flavored with cardamom and saffron, its golden hue a cheerful contrast to the morning's formal duties. There are also slices of ripe mango, their sweetness sharp and intoxicating, and a few pomegranates, cultural and intellectual golden age. It is also, Devika thinks with a flicker of private amusement, a fantastic way to ensure their seeds like tiny, glistening rubies, scattered on a silver plate. She eats slowly, deliberately. This, too, is a dinner parties are never dull. The emperor sees her, and his face breaks into a broad, genuine smile. He rises ritual, a moment of quiet replenishment before the onslaught. The heavy gold necklace, the one studded with emeralds you saw, and comes to her, taking her hands. "My jewel," he says, his voice warm. You missed Varbamuhira explaining his new design for the observatory. He believes he can more accurately chart the retrograde motion of the planets fastened earlier, rests cool and solid against her collarbones. A constant, weighty reminder of her station. It feels less. Devika smiles back, a genuine smile this. Time, not the serene mask of the court. She has a deep like an adornment and more like a yoke. Her study, where the day's first meeting is to take place, is affection for her husband's boundless enthusiasm, even if it often results in yet another large-scale construction project that marvel of organized thought. Unlike the soft intimacy of her bedchamber, this room is all function, albeit a very treasurer will have to sigh about. She greets the astronomer, who bows deeply. "Your Majesty," he says, his beautiful one. Tall, slatted bookshelves, crafted from dark, polished teakwood, line one wall. But they do voice raspy with age and thought. The stars do not wait for us. We must be ready to watch them. They not hold scrolls in the way you might imagine. Instead, they house hundreds of manuscripts, each one consisting of carefully prepared. Palm leaves sit on low, comfortable cushions arranged around a polished wooden table that is barely a foot off the ground. Servants immediately cut to a uniform size, inscribed with ink, and bound together between two decorated wooden boards. It is a library up here, placing silver platters before them. The food is simple, yet elegant. There are warm, soft cakes of breathtaking scope, containing works of poetry, astronomy, mathematics, and philosophy. Light streams in from a different archway, this steamed rice, small bowls of stewed lentils seasoned with cumin and ginger, a platter of fresh fruits, mangoes. One overlooking a central courtyard where the palace guards are now drilling, their movements precise and rhythmic, though thankfully silent from this distance, pomegranates, and bananas, and a pot of warm milk sweetened with honey and spiced with cardamom. A small bowl, the treasurer arrives. His name is Vatsa, a man whose face seems permanently etched with the concern of someone who has just misplaced, contains coarse, pinkish crystals of Sinhava lavena, or rock salt, mined from the mountains, and a rather large sum of money, even. When he hasn't, he bows, his posture a perfect right angle, considered the purest of all salts, fit for offerings and for royalty. It's an oddly specific culinary preference, and begins his report without preamble. He speaks of granary levels in the province of Saurashtra, of tax revenues status symbol you can eat as they eat. The conversation is not of personal matters, but of state. The emperor speaks from the port of Tamarlipti, of the fluctuating price of pepper from the south. His voice is a low of the grain reports, his brow furrowed. The yields are good, but the monsoon was late in the west. Steady drone, the perfect soundtrack for a deep and satisfying nap. He seems to have counted every single grain of rice personally. We must ensure the surplus from the east reaches them before winter. Varbunahira, a man whose mind is usually a task for which he will surely receive a medal in the afterlife. This is the bedrock of the empire. On the cosmos, adds a practical note. The river trade routes are slowest this time of year, Majesty. The roads not grand pronouncements, but logistics. The Gupta administration was a masterpiece of bureaucracy, a complex web of provinces. Districts will be faster. Devika listens, chewing a piece of mango slowly. She says nothing, but her mind is working, and villages, each with its own set of officials. The major historical fact of the day is this intricate system of governance. She knows the governors of the eastern provinces. She knows which ones are efficient, which are ambitious, and which one with provincial governors, the Aparikas. Overseeing district heads, the Vishayapatas, who in turn has a rather unfortunate fondness for gambling. She will have to draft a few carefully worded letters later, letters that will feel local affairs. It was a pyramid of paperwork that allowed an emperor in Pataliputra to know, with reasonable accuracy, how much like gentle inquiries but carry the weight of an imperial command. The true art of ruling, she has learned, is making wheat was being harvested hundreds of miles away. It is a testament to the human spirit that civilization was built on this much paperwork. Devika listens, her expression unreadable. Her gaze is fixed on the treasurer, but her mind is working beneath the surface. People think your best ideas were theirs all along. The historical reality of the Navaratnas is a subject of some debate among scholars. While these brilliant men certainly lived during the Gupta period, the tradition that all nine served together in the same, connecting his figures to other reports, other whispers. She interrupts his flow of numbers with a simple question. The monsoon court at the same time may be a later, more poetic embellishment. It's a wonderful story, but history was favorable in the West, Vatsa. The yields you report from Saurashtra, they seem low, is rarely so tidy. As the meal concludes, the emperor turns to Devika, his eyes alight with that familiar project. Vatsa pauses, momentarily flustered. The official reports, Your Majesty, the official reports, launching. Glint. And the library, is it ready for the journey? He asks. I want, she says, her voice still soft, are written by officials. I have had other letters from merchants. They speak of a bountiful harvest. They also speak of a new road tax being levied by the governor's cousin, the scholars in Ujjain, to see the breadth of knowledge we have gathered here. I want them to be ... astounded. She gives him a serene nod. I am overseeing the final preparations myself this morning, she says. Inside, she thinks silence. The treasurer swallows. The air in the room suddenly feels much warmer. In the corner of the room, perched, astounded is one word for it. Unnecessarily heavy is another dot as the treasurer retreats. Meticulous man named Acharya are directing the careful loading of the precious cargo. Devika approaches, and the leaving behind a lingering scent of nervous sweat and ink, the air in the study recalibrates. The palace servants' bustling activity immediately quiets. Acharya hurries over, bowing so low his forehead nearly grazes his knees. Your have at some point silently entered and placed a fresh clay jug of cool water on a side table. Its surface. Majesty, he says, his voice brimming with a nervous energy. The final scrolls are being packed. We have double beaded with condensation. The rhythmic thud of the guards' practice spears in the courtyard has ceased, replaced by the distant checked. The catalogs. Every manuscript is accounted for. He gestures to a nearby chest, its lid open. Inside you, melodic chime of a temple bell. Time in the palace is not just a progression. It is a texture. Constantly don't see books as you would know them. Instead, you see row upon row of tightly rolled scrolls, each changing. In the corner, a clepsydra, an ornate water clock, marks the passing hours. Water tied with a colored string and marked with a small clay tag. These are the books of the ancient world. Most are drips with a soft, steady plank from one copper. Bowl into another below it, each drop a tiny liquid heartbeat telepatras, manuscripts made from dried and treated palm leaves, cut into long rectangular strips. The scribe would etch measuring out the segments of the Empress's day. It is a strangely soothing sound, a reminder that even the most crowded the letters into the leaf with a sharp stylus, and then rub a mixture of soot and oil over the surface. Which schedule is simply a series of individual moments. The next appointment is with a delegation of Buddhist monks. Their leader is would stick in the grooves, making the text legible. The process is painstaking, the result fragile. It makes the idea an elderly man named Nagarjuna, not the famous philosopher of centuries past, but a senior abbot from the great monastic of taking them on a bumpy multi-week road trip, feel less like scholarship and more like an active, profound, borderline university of Nalanda. He enters with two younger monks, their heads shaved, their robes the color of saffron. An earth. They move reckless faith, Devika peers into the chest, her expression serious. The astronomical texts, the works of Airy with a serene, gliding purposefulness, their faces masks of peaceful contemplation. He speaks with the practiced humility of a man who knows he is in charge of a great deal of tax-exempt land. They are here, ostensibly to offer blessings, Abada, she asks. Acharya points to a separate cart, one even more carefully guarded than the others. They have their own cart, Your Majesty, as you commanded. This is the heart of the collection. The Gupta Empire was for the Empress's upcoming journey to the city of Ujjain, a journey you heard the secretary announce earlier, but a powerhouse of mathematics and science. It was here that the concept of zero, shunya, was first treated as a number. Devika knows there is always more to it. Spirituality and real estate have been close companions for much of human history. In its own right, a revolutionary idea that would change mathematics and the world forever. Aryabhata's work on the abbot speaks of Dharma, of the impermanence, of all things, of the path to enlightenment. His voice is smooth, and the approximation of pi, the circumference of the earth, and the causes of eclipses was centuries ahead of its time. To hypnotic, a stark contrast to the treasurer's anxious drone, Devika listens patiently, her hands folded in her lap. She, Devika, these scrolls are more precious than any gem. They are the captured thoughts of geniuses, of course the specific. Is the monarch of a predominantly Hindu empire, a devout follower of Vishnu herself. Yet the Gupta dynasty is famous for its religious details of how an empress might have transported a personal library are speculative, constructed from our knowledge of their reverence for learning and the tolerance. This is the great historical fact that defines the era, the state's active patronage of Buddhism and Jainism, alongside Hinduism, practical challenges of imperial travel. But it is certain that collections of manuscripts were considered immense treasures. As Devika moves down, it was a delicate, masterful balancing act, fostering a period of extraordinary intellectual and artistic cross-pollination. The A be the line of carts. She runs a hand along the lacquered wood of one of the chests. Inside this one, she knows Bhat, after several minutes of pleasant, high-minded philosophy, finally arrives at his point. Nalanda is expanding. A are the great works of poetry by Kalidasa, plays, philosophical treatises, and manuals on everything from statcraft to new library is being built to house translations of texts from Sri Lanka and the Western kingdoms. They require a new land grant and medicine. It is a snapshot of a civilization's entire intellectual output being packed up for a road trip. The ancient art of overpacking, it seems, has always been with us. She notices that Acharya has organized the scrolls, perhaps a royal endowment to fund the acquisition of rare manuscripts. He frames the request not as a plea for money, but as a not just by subject, but by the color of the string used to tie them. Red for philosophy, blue for poetry, opportunity for the Empress to accumulate spiritual merit. It is a beautiful, elegant piece of political maneuvering. Devika inclines her head slightly, a gesture of consideration. The pursuit of knowledge is the highest virtue, Venerable Nagarjuna, she says, yellow for science. His obsessive organizational systems are both impressive and slightly comical. Like a squirrel arranging its nuts by shade, her voice as smooth as his. It is why I myself travel with a library. This is it, the thing in size. Excellent work, Acharya, she says, her voice calm and approving. The man visibly swells with pride. We have taken every precaution, Your Majesty, but the weight. The weight is considerable. It will slow that makes her unique. The younger monks exchange a subtle, surprised glance. The abbot's serene expression does not fall entire caravan. Devika looks at the long line of heavy carts, then back at the proud, nervous face of herder, but his eyes sharpen with interest. The Empress gestures to the shelves that line her study. These are but a fraction head librarian. Knowledge is heavy, Asharya, she says with a faint, ironic smile. That is its nature of my collection. When I travel, a great number of these manuscripts travel with me, carried in their own dedicated carts, attended. She looks up and sees one of the gardeners finally sprinkling water on the coups screens she had noticed from by their own scribes and librarians. This was her peculiar, magnificent obsession. In an age when books were precious, her balcony at dawn. The earthy scent drifts over, a welcome relief from the dust of the courtyard. The day is rare things painstakingly copied by hand she possessed. A mobile library of immense size. It was a logistical nightmare, a train moving on. The Abbot Nagarjuna's placid expression does not change, but you see a new light in his eyes, a flicker of genuine scholarly respect, which is far more valuable than mere deference to her rank. Her traveling library is not just a collection of books. It's the sheer scale of the institution, with its towering stupas and multiple colleges, was a testament to the Gupta commitment to learning's statement. It declares that knowledge is not a static treasure to be hoarded in one place, but historians are still piecing together the full extent of its curriculum, but accounts suggest it covered not just Buddhist philosophy living, breathing thing that should move and engage with the world. It also, not incidentally, makes his request for but also medicine, mathematics, astronomy, and fine arts. A truly astonishing place. It's no wonder Nagar New Library in Nalanda seemed less like a petition for funds and more like a collaboration between peers. It's a masterful Juno was looking for a bit of extra funding. Managing a place like that must have been the ancient equivalent of being a university president. Piece of soft power played without raising her voice. A noble endeavor indeed. Your Majesty, Nagarjuna says, his with just as many fundraisers to attend, you follow the Empress onward, deeper into the administrative voice, losing some of its hypnotic quality and gaining a note of sincere curiosity. To carry the light of learning on the road itself, heart of the palace. The architecture shifts subtly here. The corridors are less ornate, the carvings on the pillars less intricate. Devika grants him a small, knowing smile. The light is heavy, she says, echoing her earlier comment to this is a place of work, not of leisure. The air is filled with the faint, dry, papery scent librarian, a callback you catch from the dusty courtyard. But it is better than traveling in the dark. You shelve old documents and the low, murmuring sounds of clerks at work in adjacent rooms. You pass an open doorway and have your land grant for Nalanda and an endowment for the new library. The two younger monks who have been standing catch a glimpse of men sitting on the floor, bent over low wooden desks, their styluses scratching methodically across fresh palm leaves. It is the sound of the empire's memory being written, one character at a time. You arrive at a large, as still as statues, subtly relax their shoulders. Their mission is a success. But the Empress is not finished. She adds a condition, her voice, as smooth as polished jade. My chief librarian, Acharya, will be part of the selection, airy room dominated by a massive low table. Spread across it is not a map of cloth or paper, but a huge committee for your new acquisitions. He has a particular talent for spotting forgeries. This is both a genuine offer of expertise, shallow tray filled with smoothed, damp sand. An engineer, a stocky man with calloused hands and a deeply tanned face, is already waiting. He is not a courtier. His tunic is practical, his hair tied back simply, and a gentle reminder of who is in charge. A librarian exchange program, an ancient form of academic collaboration. He bows, but with the efficient gesture of a busy man, not the deep, lingering bow of a petitioner. Mrs. Bree continues, when my caravan reaches Ujjain, I will expect your scholars there to engage in a formal debate, Hat, the royal architect and chief engineer. He is, by all accounts, a man who is more comfortable with his Shastartha with my own. The topic will be the nature of consciousness as described in the Upanishads versus the Buddhist concept of anatta, or no self. This was a classic and beloved form of intellectual sport, laws of physics, than the laws of etiquette. Your Majesty, he says, his voice a low rumble. He gestures to the sand table. The plans for the Western Reservoir. On the sand, he has etched a detailed topographical map of an ancient India, a public contest of logic and rhetoric, where great minds would argue complex philosophical points, often for days. It valley a day's ride from the city. He has used small, painted stones to represent villages and tiny twigs to mark was the academic Olympics of its time, complete with rules, judges, and occasionally sore losers. The abbot, the current path of a seasonal river. It is a brilliant, simple way to visualize a complex project. It is practical's eyes gleam. This is a challenge he cannot refuse, an invitation to a battle of wits that is far more exciting too. It is temporary. He can reshape a mountain with the sweep of a hand. Devika walks around the table, studying him than any discussion of endowments. It would be our profound honor, Your Majesty, he says, and for the first time the model. Her eyes, which were moments ago assessing the subtle intentions of a monk, are now tracing the flow of water. You're certain he is being completely honest? He has gotten what he came for and more. He has been calculating angles and imagining the lives of the people represented by those little painted stones. This is the other side of her power, given not just money, but a purpose, a challenge, a connection to the very heart of the empires. Intellectual life, not the soft power of diplomacy, but the hard, practical application of resources to change the very landscape. The Gupta, the monks bow, a deeper and more meaningful bow this time, and depart, leaving behind a sense of quiet. Triumph, and the period saw incredible advances in hydraulic engineering. The construction of irrigation canals, tanks, embankments, and reservoirs was a state feint. Lingering scent of old robes and profound calm. The Empress watches them go, her face impassive. She has just priority, essential for the agricultural surplus that fueled the empire's prosperity. This wasn't just about providing drinking water. It was committed a significant amount of the state's treasury to a building project. The very thing the treasurer of Vatsa was pale about, transforming arid land into productive farmland, a major historical achievement that underpinned the entire Golden Age. Brihat begins to explain the design about this morning. She makes a mental note to send Vatsa a gift basket, perhaps some fruit, or a very strong drink. The major historical fact here is the sheer scale and intellectual prowess of Nalanda Mahavihara, it using a long, thin stick to point out features. On a sand map, he speaks of sluice gates and was one of the world's first great residential universities, housing over 10,000 students in catchment areas of soil composition and evaporation rates. He is a man in love with the practical magic of hydrology, and his 2,000 teachers from across the Buddhist world, with a library, it was said, that was 9 stories high, and enthusiasm is strangely infectious. To illustrate a point about diverting water to different villages based on seasonal need, he reaches into a small leather contained hundreds of thousands of volumes. Its destruction centuries later was an incalculable loss to human knowledge. The precise details of its bag, and pulls out a handful of carved wooden pieces. There is a king, an elephant, a horse, and a fit curriculum and administration are still matters of scholarly investigation, as much of what we know comes from the laudatory accounts of its soldier. He places them on the map. If we release the water here, he says, placing the elephant piece on students and visiting pilgrims, who were perhaps not the most objective of sources, Devika stands and walks towards the SL at the head of a newly drawn canal. It benefits this village cluster, but it puts the lower fields at risk. Eye-fatted bookshelves, the ones holding her most immediate collection. She runs a finger along the carved wooden cover of a palm leaf manuscript. It is a copy of the Yoga Sutras of Patanjali. She doesn't open it, the reins fail. He then moves the horse piece to another location. A secondary channel here, however, would be more stable, though less dramatic. He is using the pieces from Chaturanga, the ancient game that as the ancestor touches it, a silent communion with the mind that created it centuries ago. For a moment, the vast, complex machine of modern chess. It was a war game, a game of strategy. For 4 players, representing the 4 branches of the army of the empire recedes, and there is only this quiet room, the silent wisdom on the shelves, and the steady. Using its pieces to plan the distribution of life-giving water feels like a beautiful, ironic inversion of their original purpose. A patient dripping of the water clock in the corner, measuring out a life that is both profoundly powerful and profoundly constrained. The meeting's a small, peculiar cultural habit, using the tools of war for the arts of peace. Historians still debate what the monks was a success, but it was still a meeting, a performance. And the day is still young. Asterisk, precise rules, and origins of Chaturanga, but its development in India during this period is a well-established fact. Section 6, asterisk. The quiet moment in the study is brief. The water clock drips, the distant sounds of the palace that would eventually, after centuries of travel and evolution, conquer the world in the form of chess. Devika listens intently, hum along, and the agenda, as always, waits for no one. A servant enters, bows, and announces her chin resting on her hand. The fate of thousands of people, their harvests, their livelihoods, rests on the arrival of the chief engineer, a man named Dimon. He is here to present the final plans for the new reservoir decisions. She asks a question about the strength of the main embankment, another about the long-term maintenance costs. Her the very one mentioned by the secretary at the start of the day. Remember that? It feels like a lifetime ago. The questions are sharp, practical. She is no longer just an empress in a silk sari. She is a project manager, a civil empress nods, and the servant ushers in a man who seems to be made of different material than the courtiers and monks engineer. The chair of the planning committee you realize is the real, unglamorous work of civilization you have seen so far. Damon is broad-shouldered, his skin weathered by the sun, his hands large. It's not the poetry or the philosophy, but drainage. After a long silence, she nods and calloused. His white robes are practical, not ceremonial, and he carries not a manuscript, but a large. Your plan is sound perheb. The secondary channel is the wiser choice. Stability is more valuable than drama. Rolled up piece of treated cloth. He unrolls it on the low table with a business-like flourish, weighing begin the work. Brihet breaks into a wide, satisfied grin. He has his approval. He can go and build something down the corners with 4 small, smooth river stones he produces from a pouch at his belt. It is a detailed drawing. The Empress turns from the sand. Table, leaving the miniature war for water behind her. The morning is almost over, an architectural plan rendered in charcoal and colored dyes. It shows a cross-section of a wide earthen dam, a network of canals, and a complex system of sluice. Gates. It is a thing of stark, practical beauty. Your Majesty, Damon begins, his voice a low rumble, devoid of the flowery preamble she is used to. And there is still so much to do. With the reservoir plans approved and the engineer dispatched. To go and play in the sand, you can feel the morning's formal agenda finally winding down. A sense of transition hangs in the air, a shift from the structured meetings of the court to the more personal, if no less demanding, rhythms of the Empress's day. Devika walks away from the sand table, where Brihad is already sweeping the miniature landscape clean, ready for his next project. She moves towards the open archway overlooking the central courtyard. The guards have finished their silent drills, and now a group of young princes, her nephews and various cousins, are practicing archery under the watchful eye of a weapons master. Their shouts and laughter echo faintly, a sound of youthful energy that seems very far from the quiet, calculated world of reservoirs and land grants. She stands for a moment, watching them. One of the younger boys, no more than 10, successfully hits a target near the center and pumps his fist in the air with a triumphant whoop. A genuine, unguarded smile touches Devika's lips. It is a brief, private moment, a glimpse of the woman. Beneath the layers of silk and responsibility, remember the cool, quiet dawn on her balcony? This feels like a small echo of that piece, a brief connection to a world operating on simpler principles. Aim, release, succeed, or fail, and try again, Layla. Her ever-present handmaiden approaches silently, holding a silver tray. On it is a single perfect white gardenia floating in a small bowl of water and a delicate cup made of hammered silver, filled with a cool, pale green liquid. "A sherbet of sweet lime and mint, Your Majesty," she says softly, "to refresh you." Before the midday meal, Devika takes the cup. The silver is cool to the touch, and the sherbet is tart, sweet, and intensely refreshing. It's the ancient equivalent of a perfectly timed iced tea, a small luxury that cuts through the growing heat of the day and the lingering mental dust of bureaucratic wrangling. This small act of refreshment is a part of a sophisticated food culture. While we have religious and medical texts that discuss food, detailed recipes from the Gupta period are incredibly rare. Much of what historians know about the diet of the elite is pieced together from mentions in poetry, dramatic plays, and the accounts of foreign travelers like Faxian. We know they ate a wide variety of fruits, vegetables, grains, and dairy products, and used a complex array of spices. But the exact composition of a royal sherbet is a matter of educated guesswork. She sips the drink slowly, her gaze still on the courtyard. The midday meal will be a more formal affair than breakfast, attended by various members of the extended royal family. It will be less about sustenance and more about performance, a daily ritual of reinforcing the family hierarchy. There will be polite inquiries about health, subtle negotiations over minor household matters, and a great deal of unspoken history hanging in the air between each bite of food. It is, in its own way, more exhausting than a meeting with the treasurer. Frankly, the idea of having to make small talk with a dozen relatives you didn't choose sounds like a unique form of torture. Even if the food is excellent, as she finishes the sherbet, another figure appears in the doorway of the study. This is not a servant or a minister. It is a young woman, perhaps 16 years old, with Devika's own dark eyes and fine-boned features. She is dressed in the simple but elegant silks of a princess. This is Tara, Devika's daughter. She hesitates at the threshold, a flicker of uncertainty on her face. "Mother?" she asks, her voice soft. Devika turns, her smile softening into something warmer, more genuinely affectionate. "Tara, come. I was just watching your cousins prove that they are a danger to every straw target in the city." Tara walks into the room, her eyes falling on the now blank sand table. "Was that the engineer?" she asks. "Did you approve the reservoir?" "I did," Devika says. "Soon, the villages to the west will not have to fear the failure of a single monsoon." Tara traces a line in the empty sand. "That's good," she says, but her voice is distracted. She looks up at her mother, her expression troubled. "I had a lesson with my music tutor this morning. He was trying to explain the Shruti, The shruti is an incredibly subtle concept in Indian classical music. It refers to the microtonal intervals between notes, the tiny gradations of pitch that give a raga its specific emotional color and character. There are traditionally 22 of them within an octave, far more than the 12 semitones of the standard Western scale. It is a concept of profound musical and mathematical sophistication, and a major historical feature of the subcontinent's artistic heritage. It is also, for a beginner, notoriously difficult to grasp. I don't understand, Tara confesses, frustration clouding her face. I can't hear the difference. It all just sounds out of tune. Devika puts the empty silver cup down and steps toward her daughter. She places a hand on her shoulder. Your ear is not yet trained for it, she says gently. It is like learning a new alphabet. At first, the letters are just strange marks on a page. But with time and practice, you begin to see the words. Then the sentences. And then one day, you look at them and you no longer see the marks at all. You only hear the poetry. She looks from her daughter's troubled face to the vast, silent library on the wall. Some things, she says, her voice a near whisper, cannot be taught. They must be learned. The conversation with her daughter hangs in the air, a delicate counterpoint to the morning's heavy orchestration of statcraft. Tara's frustration with the musical microtones, the shrutis, is a small human problem, yet it feels deeply connected to everything else. The patience required to hear a half note is the same patience required to govern an empire, to build a reservoir, to wait for a monk to get to the point. It is the art of perceiving the subtle, crucial details that others miss. Devika leads, her daughter from the study, her hand resting lightly on Tara's back, a silent gesture of comfort and solidarity. They walk together towards the dining hall, their steps echoing in the now quieter corridors. The midday sun is high, casting sharp, bright squares of light on the polished floors. The air is warm and still. They pass by a niche in the wall where a statue of the goddess Lakshmi stands, carved from dark stone and adorned with a fresh garland of yellow marigolds. A small oil lamp burns at her feet, its flames steady in the breezeless air. The scent of the flowers and the warm oil is thick and sweet. Both mother and daughter instinctively press their palms together for a fleeting moment, a gesture of reverence so ingrained it is almost unconscious. The dining hall is a long, high-ceilinged room with walls covered in frescoes depicting scenes from the great epics, the Ramayana and the Mahabharata. Gods and heroes battle demons and navigate complex moral dilemmas in vibrant, earthy colors. It's like having a graphic novel of your most sacred stories painted on your walls, a constant reminder of the grand drama of existence. The extended family is already assembling, a murmuring constellation of uncles, aunts, and cousins, all dressed in fine silks and adorned with a frankly intimidating amount of gold. They are seated on low cushions on the floor, arranged in a precise U-shape around a central space dot. As Devika and Tara enter, the low hum of conversation ceases. All eyes turn to them. Devika moves to her designated place at the head of the formation, next to the emperor who has just arrived from his own morning of meetings. She inclines her head in a general greeting, her expression once again assuming that familiar mask of serene, pleasant neutrality. Tara takes her seat further down the line next to an aunt who immediately begins asking her a series of probing questions about her studies. You can see the young princess brace herself for the interrogation. Servants begin to move with silent efficiency. They place large circular trays or thalis made of hammered bronze before each person. The thali is not just a plate. It is a map of a meal. A mound of fragrant, long-grained rice sits in the center, a snowy mountain surrounded by a collection of small bowls or katoras. Each bowl contains a different preparation, a carefully balanced offering of the 6 essential tastes of Ayurvedic Cuisine: sweet, sour, salty, pungent, bitter, and astringent. This culinary philosophy, a major cultural and medical tradition, holds that a balanced meal with all six tastes is essential for health and well-being. Today's meal includes a sweet and sour lentil stew, a bitter melon curry, a pungent vegetable stir-fry with mustard seeds, a salty yogurt raita with mint, and a sweet rice pudding for dessert. There are also warm, soft flatbreads, glistening. With ghee, the meal begins. There is no clatter of cutlery as the food is eaten with the right hand. This is a practice that is both practical and deeply sensory, a way of connecting with the food, not just through taste and smell, but also through touch. The etiquette is precise. One must only use the fingertips, and the hands should remain clean. It is an art form in itself. The emperor discusses a minor trade dispute with his brother. An uncle complains about the heat. An aunt offers unsolicited advice on garden management. It is a slow, polite dance of domestic politics, 1,000 tiny currents of alliance and rivalry flowing beneath the surface of perfect decorum. Devika eats little. She tastes each dish, nodding her approval to the head of the household staff. But her attention seems elsewhere. Her gaze drifts to the frescoes on the wall, to a scene depicting the hero Arjuna receiving wisdom from the god Krishna on the battlefield. It is a moment of profound teaching in the midst of chaos. Perhaps that's what she sees in her own life, a constant search for clarity amidst the noise of the court dot. Suddenly, a commotion from further down the line breaks the calm. One of her younger cousins, a boy of about 12, has managed to spill a bowl of bright yellow lentils stew down the front of his pristine white silk tunic. A dark, ugly stain spreads across the fabric. His mother, Devika's sister-in-law, looks mortified. The boy looks like he is about to cry. A tense silence falls over the hall. For a moment, it feels like a genuine crisis, but the emperor, your husband, just laughs. It is a loud, hearty, genuine laugh that echoes in the high-ceilinged room. It seems, he says, with a twinkle in his eye, that the lentils have won this battle, cousin, a victory for the legume army. The tension shatters. Everyone chuckles. The boy, seeing he is not in trouble, grins with relief. Servants rush to help, and the meal resumes its placid rhythm. It is a small moment, but a telling one. The emperor's ability to diffuse a situation with humor is as powerful a tool of governance as any decree. Historians rarely record the jokes of kings, focusing instead on their battles and laws, but perhaps we miss a crucial part of their success by doing so. The ability to manage the delicate egos of a large, powerful family is a skill that cannot be overstated. And a well-timed joke is often more effective than a royal command. The midday meal dissolves as quietly as it began. The family disperses. In a soft rustle of silk, each member retreating to their own private quarters to escape the tyranny of the afternoon sun. The heat has now settled over Pataliputra, a heavy, shimmering blanket that seems to absorb all sound and ambition. It is an official, unspoken decree. For the next few hours, nothing truly important shall happen. The guards in the courtyard stand a little less rigidly, seeking out slivers of shade. The merchants in the city below have pulled their awnings low, and the whole world seems to have slipped into a collective, drowsy pause. This is the part of the day dedicated to the thrilling spectator sport of not melting. You follow Devika and her daughter Tara, not to their sleeping chambers, but to a small, secluded pavilion in one of the palace's inner gardens. It is an airy, open-sided structure with a tiled roof, surrounded by flowering hibiscus and shaded by a large, ancient banyan tree. The coups screens you saw being prepared at dawn have been hung on all sides, and servants have sprinkled them with water. A cool, fragrant, earthy mist fills the air, a small man-made miracle against the oppressive heat. It is a pocket of artificial spring in the heart of a blazing summer dawn inside. Cushions have been arranged on a large, beautifully woven rug. In the center, a servant has laid out a cloth board, its surface marked with a cross-shaped path of embroidered squares. This is for a game of pachisi, a popular pastime for a slow afternoon. It is a race game of luck and strategy, a pleasant way to pass the time with another person without the conversational demands of, say, a family meal. A perfect activity for post-lunch lethargy, Tara's earlier frustration seems to have melted. Away in the cool of the pavilion, she sits opposite her mother, her eyes bright with competitive spirit. The game pieces are small, beehive-shaped tokens carved from colored wood red for Devika, blue for Tara, but the dice are what catch your eye. There are no spotted cubes here. Instead, they use 6 cowrie shells. The player throws the shells onto the rug, and the score is determined by how many land with their openings facing up. It's a wonderfully tactile form of generating randomness, the smooth, porcelain-like shells clicking softly as they land. This use of cowrie shells is a fascinating cultural quirk. For centuries, these small shells, harvested from the Indian Ocean, were also used as a form of currency for small transactions, especially in rural areas. So, in a way, they are literally throwing money around to see who wins. The game begins. Devika throws the shells. 2 land facing up, a low score. She moves one of her pieces 2 squares from the central starting space. Tara takes her turn, shaking the cowries in her cupped hands before tossing them. 5 up. A strong move. She lets out a small, satisfied sigh and moves her piece forward, her blue token already well ahead of her mother's red one. The only sounds are the gentle click of the shells, the soft thud of the wooden pieces on the cloth board, and the distant, drowsy buzz of insects in the garden. This is a different kind of strategy than the one Devika employed this morning. There are no provinces to manage, no monks to placate. The goal is simple. Get your pieces around the board and back to the safety of the center before your opponent does. And if the opportunity arises, land on the same square as your opponent's piece, sending it all the way back to the start. It is a game of simple, satisfying cruelty. The exact rules of these ancient board games are often a subject of historical reconstruction, as they were passed down through oral tradition far more often than they were written down, leaving us to piece together the gameplay from archaeological finds and artistic depictions. Devika watches her daughter, who is now completely absorbed in the game, her brow furrowed in concentration as she calculates her next move. A small smile plays on the Empress's lips. She sees the same focused intensity in Tara that the Emperor has for his building projects, that Brihat the engineer has for his reservoirs. It's a good sign. After another throw, Devika lands one of her red pieces squarely on top of Tara's lead blue one. With a quiet, almost apologetic flick of her finger, she sends her daughter's piece back to the starting square. Tara groans in frustration, but it's theatrical, not real. She is already scooping up the cowrie shells for her next turn. In the cool, misty quiet of the pavilion, surrounded by the sleeping garden, the empire with its endless demands feels very far away. There is only the board, the shells, and the small, peaceful battle. The game of pachisi concludes with Tara claiming an arrow. Triumphant victory, a victory her mother might have subtly engineered with a few deliberately cautious moves. The Empress presents no evidence of this, of course, offering only a placid smile of congratulations. The heat of the afternoon is just beginning to break, the light slanting lower in the sky, and the palace is slowly rousing itself from its slumber. The brief, peaceful interlude is over. Duty calls, and for Devika, duty so often leads back to one place. She leaves Tara to her own pursuits and walks back towards the western courtyard, where the packing of her beloved library continues. But she does not go to the main, bustling area you saw this morning. Instead, she enters a smaller, more secure stone chamber adjoining the courtyard. This is the inner sanctum, where the most rare and valuable manuscripts are given their final preparations for the journey. The air inside is cool and dry, and it carries a unique, wonderful smell. The faint, papery scent of old palm leaves, the sharp, smoky aroma of carbon ink, and the spicy, resinous perfume of camphor and sandalwood. It is the smell of preserved thought. Acharya, the chief librarian you met earlier, is here, of course. His natural state appears to be one of controlled panic, and he is currently hovering over a scribe who is meticulously checking a catalog list against a stack of manuscripts. He sees the Empress and flutters over, going low. Your Majesty, we're cross-referencing the final codices. Every tag, every string is being verified. The risk of misplacing a single text is, well, it is unthinkable. He looks as though he might faint at the mere suggestion. Devika gives him a calming nod, a silent dismissal. He is a brilliant librarian, but sometimes his anxiety is more exhausting than a dozen meetings. She moves past him to a low table where a single manuscript is laid open, held flat by two small, polished weights. This is a text she specifically requested to inspect. It is a copy of a philosophical treatise by the sage Vatsyayana, his famous work on the art of love, but a lesser known, and frankly more dense, work of logic. She runs a finger lightly over the surface of the palm leaf. The scribe's work is exquisite, the Sanskrit letters etched with perfect clarity. This clarity is a major historical achievement in itself, thanks to the quality of the ink. The ink used for these manuscripts, known as Masai, was a carefully prepared substance, typically made from fine carbon soot often collected from the flame of an oil lamp, mixed with water and a natural plant-based gum or resin to act as a binder. The result was a deep, permanent black that stained the fibers of the leaf, ensuring the words would last for centuries if cared for properly. She leans closer, and the second scent, the resinous one, becomes stronger. Before being packed into their lacquered chests, the manuscripts are being given a final preservation treatment. A servant is carefully passing each one through the smoke of a small, smoldering brazier. The smoke is not from ordinary wood. It is from a mixture of camphor and frankincense, a practice of fumigation. This isn't for religious purposes. It's a brilliant, ancient form of pest control. The aromatic smoke permeates the palm leaves, making them unappetizing to the silverfish, bookworms, and other insects that would otherwise turn this priceless library into dust. It is an obscure but vital bit of cultural technology, a form of intellectual perfume. Devika picks up the heavy manuscript, feeling its familiar weight. It contains arguments of labyrinthine complexity, ideas that could occupy a scholar for a lifetime. She knows a few of her husband's generals find her obsession with these texts baffling. They see a cart full of old leaves. She sees 1,000 minds, 1,000 conversations waiting to be had. She sees armor, the precise role and intellectual autonomy of royal women in curating these kinds of personal, scholarly collections is a fascinating area of history, though one that often requires reading between the lines of texts written by men. She places the manuscript down gently. Is the special container for this one prepared, Acharya? She asks. Yes, Your Majesty. Padded with silk and sealed with extra lacquer, he replies, rushing to her side. As you requested. She nods. Good. This one is so profoundly logical it could put an elephant to sleep. It might be useful if we run into any insomniacs on the road. Acharya stares at her, unsure if this is a joke. The Empress turns and walks towards the door, leaving him to his lists and his worries. The scent of preserved words clinging to her silk sari like a second perfume. The late afternoon sun casts long, golden shadows across the stone courtyards. The oppressive heat of midday has finally broken, replaced by a soft, warm breeze that carries the scent of dust and distant wood smoke. You follow the Empress as she leaves the library's orbit, her silk sari a whisper of sound in the quiet corridors. The palace is stirring back to life, but she bypasses the grand halls and public spaces, heading instead to a small, secluded chamber near her own apartments. This is her personal scriptorium, a place far more intimate than the formal study you saw this morning. Doubt there are no grand shelves here. A single, intricately carved wooden desk stands against one wall, its surface holding not palm leaves, but an array of implements for a more refined kind of correspondence. There are pots of ink in different colors, holders for fine brushes, and a roll of pale, cream-colored silk, its surface smooth and lustrous. A single lattice window looks out onto a walled garden where doves are cooing, their gentle, mournful sounds a peaceful backdrop to the task at hand. It is here that the Empress practices a different kind of power, the quiet, subtle art of the written word. Layla is already there, preparing the workspace. She grinds a small, solid block of black ink on a stone slab, adding a few drops of water, until it forms a smooth, dark liquid. The process is slow and meditative, the circular grinding motion strangely calming. The ink has a faint, earthy smell. Devika sits on a low stool before the desk. She is going to write the letters she mentally composed this morning, the ones prompted by the treasurer's report on the low grain yields. This is the follow-up to that brief, tense moment about the governor's cousin and his inventive road tax. She is not writing to the governor himself. That would be too direct an open accusation. Instead, she is writing to the governor's wife, a woman she knows from a previous royal tour. The letter will be a masterpiece of polite inquiry. It will ask after the woman's health, compliment her on the renowned beauty of her gardens, and mention, almost as an afterthought, that the Empress has heard whispers of a bountiful harvest in the region, and she is so looking forward to seeing the official surplus reflect this good fortune. It is the ancient art of the just checking in email, which, as we know, is never just about checking in. For this delicate task, she does not use a stylus and palm leaf. Layla unrolls a small section of the silk, and the Empress takes up a fine-tip brush. Writing on silk is a difficult art. The brush must be loaded with the perfect amount of ink, and the hand must be both light and steady, as the fabric can easily blot and feather. It is a medium that demands control and rewards subtlety. As she paints the elegant Sanskrit characters onto the fabric, you are watching a demonstration of immense, focused calm. It's a lot of effort to seem this effortless. This letter, once sealed, will be dispatched by the Imperial Postal Service. This was no slapdash affair of a lone runner hoping for the best. The major historical fact of the Gupta administration is its highly organized system of communication, which included relays of horse-mounted messengers known as dutas. These riders could cover vast distances with surprising speed, changing horses at strategically placed outposts, ensuring that a message from the capital could reach the farthest provinces in a matter of days, not weeks. It was the backbone of their centralized control, a network of information flowing as constantly as the Ganges itself. After finishing the letter, Devika inspects her work. The ink seems to have its own opinion on the matter, but for the most part has behaved. She then takes a different seal from a small wooden box. It is not the Grand Imperial Seal of State, but her own personal signet, a small, intricate carving of a lotus flower. Layla brings a stick of warm, soft lac, and Devika presses the seal into it, closing the rolled silk scroll. The message is now ready for its journey, a quiet, polite threat wrapped in perfumed silk. While the existence of the Juda system is well documented, the precise security measures and protocols for such a sensitive, personal letter from an empress remain a subject of scholarly speculation. We are left to imagine the quiet handoff, the sworn secrecy of the messenger, the ripple of alarm that this small, elegant scroll will cause when it arrives at its destination. A single silent act of writing, more powerful than a shout. With a letter dispatched into the imperial machinery, a sense of finality settles over the day's work. The sun is now a great, molten orange orb, sinking towards the horizon. The sky is streaked with shades of pink and violet, a last glorious performance before nightfall. Devika leaves the quiet scriptorium and makes her way to a private terrace on the upper level of the palace. This one faces east, away from the setting. Sun towards the deepening twilight and the broad, dark expanse of the river. The emperor's already there. He is not dressed in his formal court attire, but in a simple, comfortable robe of white cotton. He stands leaning against the balustrade, watching the first stars begin to appear. In the indigo sky, he turns as she approaches, and the smile he gives her is relaxed and genuine, free from the weight of an audience. "This is the man, not the monarch." "There you are," he says, his voice a low, warm rumble. "I was beginning to think you had decided to personally catalog every book before we leave." Devika comes to stand beside him. "There's still time," she says, a hint of playful warning in her tone. "Are you sure you packed enough spears?" "I think I saw a small space in the corner of the 7th armory cart." He laughs, a real laugh that reaches his eyes. The easy familiarity between them is a quiet comfort, a private language spoken without words. The personal relationships of emperors and empresses are, by their very nature, opaque to historians. We can read the political alliances in their marriages, but the quiet moments, the private jokes, the true nature of their partnership, these are things we can only ever reconstruct with informed imagination. Below them, the sprawling city of Pataliputra is beginning to light up. Thousands of tiny oil lamps, like captive stars, twinkle in the houses and along the main thoroughfares, their soft, flickering glow creating a scene of immense and gentle beauty. From a nearby pavilion, the sound of a sitar begins to drift on. The cooling air. A court musician has begun to play the evening raga, a melody specifically composed to be performed during the twilight hours. This practice of associating specific musical scales and moods with times of day or seasons is a profound and ancient feature of Indian classical music. The melody is slow, melancholic, and deeply beautiful, a perfect soundtrack for the end of the day. He plays with a sorrowful intensity that suggests his fee is not quite what he had hoped. The monks from Nalanda seemed pleased, the emperor remarks, his gaze on the river. Nagar Yuna sent a note of thanks. He is very much looking forward to the philosophical debate you proposed in Ujjain. He is looking forward to the endowment for his new library. Devika corrects gently. The debate is simply the price of admission. The emperor smiles, as it should be. He is quiet for a moment, then adds, "It is good that we are going to Ujjain. It has been too long. The journey is not merely a political tour. The great historical significance of Ujjain was its position as a center of learning, particularly in the fields of astronomy and mathematics. For ancient Indian geographers, Ujjain was the location of the prime meridian, the line of zero longitude from which all other distances were calculated. It was, in a very real sense, the center of their world, a place where the movements of the heavens were charted and the shape of the earth was contemplated. Their trip is a pilgrimage to the scientific heart of the empire. It will be good, Devika agrees, her eyes on the lamps twinkling below. They stand in silence for a while, two powerful people sharing a moment of simple peace. The vast machinery of the empire they command, the armies, the treasuries, the reservoirs, the libraries, all of it fades into the background. There is only the cool night air, the mournful music, and the shared, silent understanding. It's good to be the emperor, you imagine him thinking, mostly, except for the endless meetings about grain. And the relatives, the evening deepens. The sitar music fades, leaving behind a profound stillness, punctuated only by the chirping of night insects in the gardens below. The sky is now a blanket of dark velvet, strewn with a breathtaking number of stars, more than you have ever seen, unobscured by the haze of modern city lights. On the terrace, a servant has lit a few tall, elegant brass lamps, their flames casting a warm, intimate glow that holds the vast darkness at bay. It is time for the final meal of the day. Unlike the formal public lunch, the evening meal is a private affair shared only by the emperor and empress. It is served here on the terrace on a low table draped with a fine linen cloth. The food is light and simple. There are bowls of warm vegetable soup, fragrant with ginger and black pepper, a small plate of grilled pannier cheese seasoned with herbs, and a dish of steamed asparagus. This asparagus is a particular luxury. It is not native to the region, but is believed to have been introduced to India through trade with the Roman Empire, where it was highly prized. It's an interesting little tidbit of culinary history, a whisper of a distant empire on their dinner table, a testament to the long reach of ancient trade routes. The asparagus is probably just happy to be here. They eat slowly, in a comfortable silence. The day's performances are over. There are no agendas to navigate, no officials to manage. They can simply be. After a while, the emperor breaks the silence, his voice thoughtful. "You seem pleased with the library preparations," he says. It is not a question, but an observation. Devika dabs her lips with a cloth napkin. "Acharya is fretting beautifully," she replies, a hint of amusement in her voice. "He has devised a new system of color-coded strings to identify the manuscripts by genre, subgenre, and the relative grumpiness of the author. I believe philosophy is now a rather alarming shade of gray." The emperor chuckles. "I have no doubt, but I worry about the journey. The roads to the west are good, but the carts are heavy. It will slow the entire caravan." You remember Acharya expressing the same concern this morning in the courtyard? It is the practical man's view, the logistical reality. The slowness is the point, Devika says softly. Her gaze drifts out towards the star-dusted sky. We move so quickly, from one decree to the next, one province to another. We cross the entire country and see nothing but the road in front of us. She looks at him, her expression serious now. The library ... It forces us to slow down. It makes the journey as important as the destination. We will stop in villages where the people have never seen an empress, let alone a book of poetry. We will unroll the histories and the philosophies under their own trees. It is not just a tour, my love. It is a classroom. This is the heart of it, her grand, secret vision. The library is not just a collection of precious objects to be shown off in a chain. It is a tool, a mobile university, a way of connecting with her people, not through edicts and taxes, but through shared stories and ideas. It is an act of profound, and perhaps a little mad, educational ambition. The great historical fact here is the importance of oral tradition. For most people in the ancient world, knowledge was transmitted through recitation and memorization, not silent reading. The act of unrolling a scroll and reading it aloud in a village would have been a powerful, almost magical event, a performance that brought the silent, abstract world of letters to life. The emperor listens, his head tilted. He is a practical man, a man of armies and economies, of reservoirs and roads. But he is also the man who patronizes the 9 gems, who values the work of astronomers and poets. He understands what she is saying. The legacy of their reign will not just be the territories they conquered or the wealth they accumulated, but the culture they nurtured. It is an idea that appeals to his own sense of greatness. He reaches across the table and takes her hand. A classroom that stretches for 100 miles, he says, a note of wonder in his voice. Only you would think of such a thing. He gives her hand a gentle squeeze, then releases it. The intimacy of the gesture is small, but it carries the weight of their shared life, their shared burdens, their shared dreams. While court poets would write odes to their divine love, the reality of their bond is likely found in these quieter, unrecorded moments of mutual respect and understanding. But of course, historians can only speculate on the true emotional dynamics of the imperial bedroom. The conversation ends. They finish their meal in the warm, lamplit quiet, the immensity of the starlit sky above them, the sleeping city below, and the weight of their audacious plan hanging beautifully in the air between them. The last traces of the meal are cleared away by silent servants who seem to materialize from the shadows and vanish just as quickly. The emperor and empress remain on the terrace, content in the cool night air. The gentle cooing of the doves you heard earlier in the walled garden has been replaced by the rhythmic, almost mechanical chirping of crickets, a sound so constant. It soon blends into the silence itself. A faint breeze rustles the leaves of the banyan tree in the distance, a sound like a soft sigh. Devika leans back against her cushions, her body finally allowing itself to feel the accumulated fatigue of the long day. From the tense quiet of the pre-dawn balcony to the delicate negotiations with monks, from the logistical challenges of the reservoir to the subtle diplomacy of a silk letter, it has been a day of constant shifting demands. She closes her eyes for a moment, and you can feel the immense weight of it all settling upon her. Being an empress, it turns out, is a surprisingly tiring job. It's a good thing the benefits package includes a palace, the emperor seems to sense her weariness. You should rest, he says, his voice soft. The journey begins in 2 days. You will need your strength. She opens her eyes and gives him a faint smile. And you will need your patience, she replies. When my library carts get stuck in the mud for the 3rd time. The 3rd time is when I will send for the elephants, he says with a grin. Not before. It is a joke, but only just. The use of elephants as heavy-duty beasts of burden was a common and essential part of both military and civil logistics in ancient India. These magnificent creatures could pull immense loads and clear obstacles that would defeat any team of oxen, making them the ultimate all-terrain vehicles of their day. The image of a team of imperial elephants being summoned to rescue a cart, full of poetry, is a delightful one. Devika rises slowly from her cushions, her joints protesting with a quiet stiffness. The emperor stands with her. They walk together from the terrace, back into the maze of silent, lamplit corridors. They do. Not hold hands, but walk side by side, a comfortable distance between them, their shadows long and intertwined on the polished stone floors. They pass a guard standing sentinel at the entrance to the royal apartments. The guard, who has been standing as still as a statue for hours, straightens imperceptibly, his eyes fixed on a point in the middle distance. He is a silent, ever-present symbol of the invisible cage of security and protocol that surrounds them. When they reach the door to her chambers, the very same room where your journey began this morning, they pause. Sleep well, my jewel, the emperor says softly. He reaches out and gently touches a stray strand of hair that has escaped her intricate braid, tucking it back into place. It is a gesture of casual, unconscious intimacy that speaks volumes more than any formal declaration. And you, my lord, she replies, her voice a near whisper. He nods, then turns and walks away down the corridor towards his own apartments, his footsteps echoing softly before fading into the immense quiet of the palace. Devika turns and enters her chamber. It is just as you first saw it, lit by a single, flickering oil lamp. Lila and Padma, her handmaidens, are waiting. They have turned down the woven mat on her sleeping platform and laid out a simple cotton nightrobe. The air is still scented with the last traces of the day's jasmine and sandalwood, but it is faint now, a mere memory of the complex rituals of adornment. The dance of the day is now performed in reverse. The heavy jewelry is unclasped and laid carefully in its ivory box. The silk sari is unpinned and folded away. The pearls and flowers are removed from her hair, which is then unbraided and brushed until it falls, long and dark, down her back. Each step is a shedding of a layer of identity, a gentle disassembly of the Empress, until only the woman remains. The entire process is a quiet testament to the fact that it often takes more work to be natural than it does to be fully dressed. The final piece of jewelry, a simple gold ring, is slipped from her finger and placed in its velvet-lined box. Devika is now free of the day's glittering armor. Clad in the simple white cotton nightrobe, the same kind she wore at dawn, she seems both smaller and more herself. She dismisses Leela and Padma with a soft word of thanks. The two handmaidens bow and slip out of the room, leaving the Empress. In solitude at last, the day has come full circle. The cycle of adornment and disadornment is complete. She does not go to her sleeping platform immediately. Instead, she walks to the large wooden chest you saw one of the maids opening what feels like a lifetime ago. But she ignores the compartments filled with clothes and jewels. She opens a smaller, more discreet drawer near the bottom. From it, she removes not a manuscript of philosophy or a scroll of poetry, but a small, worn wooden board marked with a grid of squares. She also takes out a small leather pouch dot. She sits on a soft rug near the oil lamp, the flickering light casting a warm glow on her face. She opens the pouch and pours its contents onto the floor. They are not game pieces, but a collection of small, strangely shaped objects, a dried betel nut, a small, smooth river stone, a tiny, intricately carved ivory elephant no bigger than her thumbnail, and a single lustrous pearl. This is her own, private, peculiar form of divination, a personal ritual of seeking clarity. It is not a formal religious practice, but a quiet conversation with fate, a way of untangling the knots in her own mind. Such personal, folk magic practices existed alongside the grand state religions, while the court sponsored grand Vedic rituals and patronized Buddhist monasteries. The private beliefs of individuals were often a complex tapestry of official doctrine, local superstition, and personal habit. This kind of small-scale divination using personal and found objects is a fascinating but historically elusive subject, as it was rarely written down, existing only in the private, unrecorded moments of people's lives. We know it happened, but the specifics of how an empress might seek guidance from a handful of trinkets are lost to the quiet of her chamber. She holds the objects in her cupped hands, her eyes closed, her breathing slow and deep. She is not praying to a specific god, but rather focusing her thoughts on the journey ahead, on the heavy library carts, on the city of Ujjain, on her daughter Tara, on the intricate web of duties and desires that make up her life. After a long moment of stillness, she gently casts the objects onto the wooden board. The tiny ivory elephant lands in a square near the center of the board. The betel nut rolls to a far corner. The pearl comes to rest beside the river stone. Devika leans forward, studying the pattern they have formed. She is not reading a preordained future, but rather using the random arrangement as a canvas for her own intuition. The elephant, a symbol of strength and wisdom, is central, good. The betel nut, often used in social rituals and representing new beginnings, is far away, perhaps suggesting a delay or a complication at the start of the journey. The pearl and the stone, beauty and foundation, side by side. It is a mixed message, a map of possibilities, not certainties. She stares at the little tableau for a long time, the lamplight flickering in her dark, thoughtful eyes. She doesn't seem troubled by the ambiguity. Perhaps she finds comfort in that the universe is not shouting orders at her. It is merely offering suggestions. She gathers the objects, their surfaces cool and familiar to her touch, and places them back in their pouch. She returns the board and the pouch to their secret drawer, her private consultation with the universe complete. It appears the cosmos is about as clear in its advice as most of her human counselors. Now, finally, she is ready for sleep. She walks to the sleeping platform and lies down on the cool woven mat. There is no soft mattress, no mountain of pillows, just a simple, firm surface and a single bolster for her head. Through the open archway, she can see the same patch of night sky she looked at this morning. The stars have shifted. The world has turned. She closes her eyes, and the long, long day begins to dissolve into the quiet darkness. The soft, ambient wind chimes you heard at the very beginning slowly fade back in, a gentle signal for your own mind to let go. The boundary between waking and dreaming begins to blur, both for the Empress and perhaps for you. The sounds of the palace have faded into an immense, deep silence. The cool night air drifts in through the archway, carrying the faint, distant scent of the river and the sweet perfume of night-blooming jasmine from the garden below. It is a peaceful, soothing aroma, a final, gentle whisper from the world outside. Devika lies on her sleeping mat, her breathing slow and even. The day's events begin to replay in her mind, not as a coherent narrative, but as a cascade of fragmented images, sounds, and feelings. The face of the treasurer, Vatsa, etched with worry. The glint in the abbot Nagarina's eyes at the challenge of a debate. The weight of the golden necklace on her collarbones. The tart, shocking sweetness of the lime sherbet. The click of cowrie shells on the cloth game board. The deep, resonant voice of her husband. These fragments drift and coalesce, swirling like smoke from the fumigation brazier you saw in the library's inner sanctum. The faces of people become the characters in the frescoes on the dining hall walls. The treasurer becomes a demon of avarice, hoarding piles of grain. The engineer Brihat becomes the divine architect Vishvakarma, shaping mountains and rivers with his hands. Her daughter Tara sits by a river, trying to capture the sound of its flowing water in a song. Her mind drifts to the journey ahead. She sees the long caravan stretching for miles along a dusty road. She sees the massive, groaning library carts, each one a lumbering beast of knowledge. She sees the faces of the villagers, their eyes wide with wonder as a scribe unrolls a scroll of poetry and begins to read aloud. The words of the poet Kalidasa, whose work is packed away in one of those chests, float on the air, describing the beauty of a monsoon cloud, and the people listen, their faces upturned, as if feeling the rain itself. This is the great power of literature, a major historical force in shaping cultural identity and shared imagination. The poetic works of this era, particularly those of Kalidasa, are considered the pinnacle of classical Sanskrit literature, and they created a vision of the world that was both idealized and deeply rooted in the natural landscape of India. In her dream, she is not the Empress. She is a librarian walking beside one of the carts. Her hands are stained with ink. The sun is warm on her back. The road is long, but she is not weary. She reaches a small village, and the people gather around, not with the deference due a monarch, but with the simple curiosity of students. She opens a chest, the wood scented with camphor and sandalwood, and takes out a manuscript. It is not a grand philosophical text, but a collection of fables from the Panchatantra, stories of clever animals and foolish humans, each with a simple, practical moral. The Panchatantra is an ancient collection of animal fables in Sanskrit. Verse and prose, one of the most widely translated literary works in history. Its stories, intended to teach principles of statecraft and practical wisdom, have spread across the world, influencing countless other works of folklore and literature. She begins to read the story of the talkative turtle who wanted to fly. The children in the crowd giggle, the adults smile. For a moment, there is no empire, no politics, no burdens of state. There is only a story, a shared moment of humor and understanding. The dream is a simple one, a fantasy of a life less complicated. A life where her love for knowledge can be shared directly, without the insulating layers of protocol and power. The image dissolves, replaced by the deep, dreamless dark. The Empress sleeps. Her mind, for a few precious hours, is quiet. The great palace of Pataliputra, with its 1,000 guards and sleeping courtiers, stands silent under the vast, starry sky. The river flows on, as it has for millennia, a timeless witness to the brief, bright flame of empires and the small, human dreams of the people who lead them. The scholarly uncertainty of what an empress truly dreamed of is, of course, absolute. But it is in imagining these moments of private longing that we touch the shared humanity that connects us across the centuries. We all, at some point, wish our work was simpler, our impact more direct. The dream of the talkative turtle gives way to a deeper, more profound quiet. The Empress drifts in the vast, silent ocean of deep sleep, where time and thought dissolve. The palace around her is a stone vessel on a sea of darkness, holding its breath as the world turns slowly towards the dawn. But the journey, even in sleep, continues. Her mind, now untethered from the day's logic, begins to construct a different kind of landscape. It is not the dusty road to Ujjain, but a geography of memory and emotion. She walks through a garden filled with flowers made of lapis lazuli and trees with leaves of hammered gold. It is the garden from a story her grandmother used to tell her, a place of impossible beauty and quiet magic. This is the inner world, the one that no historian can ever access, the wellspring of character and resilience. She sees her father, a stern but kind man, teaching her to ride a horse. She feels the remembered fear and exhilaration, the grip of her small hands on the reins. She sees her mother, showing her how to distinguish between different grades of soak by touch alone. These are the formative lessons, the ones that shaped the woman she would become long before she was an empress. The value of courage, the importance of discerning quality. These are not things learned from a scroll. Her dream self wanders into a library, but it is not her own magnificent collection of palm leaf manuscripts. This one is strange, chaotic. The scrolls are piled in corners, their strings untied, their clay tags missing. The air is thick with the dust of neglect. Acharya, her meticulous librarian, is nowhere to be seen. A sense of anxiety, a feeling of loss, begins to creep into the dream. This is the fear that lurks beneath her ambition, the fear that what she is trying to preserve is too fragile, that her efforts will ultimately be undone by time and indifference. This anxiety about the preservation of knowledge is a real and recurring theme throughout history. A major historical fact is that countless ancient texts have been lost to us forever due to fires, wars, neglect, or simple decay. The Library of Alexandria is the most famous example, but it is just one among thousands. Every surviving ancient manuscript is a miracle, a survivor of a long and perilous journey through time. Devika's dream anxiety is the subconscious expression of a very real historical problem. She begins to try and sort the scrolls, her dream hands fumbling with the tangled strings. But for every one she puts in order, 2 more seem to unravel. It is a frustrating, impossible task. The dream becomes a low-grade stress nightmare, the kind where you have to take an exam you haven't studied for, or you're trying to pack a suitcase that will never close. It is the anxiety of a person who has taken on an immense responsibility, the quiet fear of failure that is the constant companion of ambition. But then the dream shifts again. Her daughter, Tara, appears in the chaotic library. She is not distressed by the mess. She picks up a single unraveled scroll and begins to read from it, her voice clear and confident. She is reading a poem, and the words, beautiful and clear, cut through the dream's anxiety. Then the emperor is there, not in his royal robes, but as a simple stonemason, patiently building a sturdy new shelf for the texts. They're all there, working together, not in a panic, but with a calm, shared purpose. The dream is her own mind reassuring itself. The legacy is not hers alone to carry. It is shared. It will be passed on. The preservation of culture is a collective effort, a relay race, not a solitary burden. A rather obscure cultural tidbit is the concept of rin, or debt, in Hindu philosophy. This isn't just a financial concept. It includes a debt to the sages, Rishi Rin, for the knowledge they have given humanity. By preserving and passing on knowledge, a person helps to repay this sacred debt. Devika's project in this light is not just a personal obsession, but the fulfillment of a profound cultural and spiritual duty. The anxious, cluttered library of her dream dissolves, replaced by a feeling of deep peace. She is floating in a cool, dark river, the water supporting her completely. The stars are reflected on the water's surface, so it seems as if she is floating in the cosmos itself. The worries are gone. The burdens have been laid down. There's only the gentle current, the silent stars, and the promise of a new day waiting on the far shore. Her final dream is one of release, a quiet surrender to the flow of time, a final preparation for the morning to come. The first faint hint of gray appears in the indigo sky. A single bird, the same one as yesterday, perhaps offers a tentative, questioning chirp. The cycle is beginning again. Inside the chamber, the oil lamp has long since burned itself out, leaving the room in a cool, deep shadow. The Empress begins to stir. Sleep recedes, and the awareness of her own body, of the cool air on her skin, of the firm mat beneath her, slowly returns. She opens her eyes. The room is still dark, but it is a different kind of darkness than the one she fell asleep in. This is a darkness pregnant with dawn, full of quiet potential. She lies still for a moment, savoring the last vestiges of peace, the last moments that belong only to her. She remembers fragments of her dreams, the chaotic library, her daughters. Voice, the feeling of floating in a river of stars. The anxieties and reassurances of her subconscious mind fade with the night, leaving behind a residue of calm, resolve. Slowly, she rises. Her movements are fluid, practiced. She does not feel the stiffness of the previous evening. She feels rested, restored. She glides to the archway and pushes aside the light curtain, stepping onto the balcony. The air is cool and damp, carrying the clean, earthy scent of the waking world. Below, the city of Pataliputra is a soft, gray silhouette, a sleeping giant. The lights in the houses have all gone out. It is the moment of ultimate quiet, the pause between the last cricket chirp and the first vendor's call. She looks out towards the east, where the horizon is now beginning to bleed with the softest shades of pink and orange. Another day. But this is not just another day. This is the last day in the palace before the journey begins. Today, all the preparations, all the planning, all the quiet anxieties will be finalized. Tomorrow, the great caravan will move. The thought does not fill her with dread, but with a quiet thrum of anticipation. The classroom is about to open. Her handmaidens, Leela and Padma, will arrive soon. The slow, elaborate ritual of the Sola. Shringar will begin again. The cool water, the fragrant uptan paste, The intricate braiding of her hair, the careful application of kohl. The silk sari will be pleated and draped. The heavy gold and emerald necklace, the one you remember from yesterday morning, will be fastened around her neck, its familiar weight a signal that the performance is about to start. The Empress will be assembled, piece by piece, until she is ready to face her court. Today's agenda will be one of final inspections. She will review the armory, ensuring the guards are properly equipped. She will meet with the head of the royal household to confirm the logistical arrangements for feeding and housing a retinue of hundreds on the road. She will pay a visit to the royal temple to make an offering for a safe journey, a public display of piety that is both a personal comfort and a political necessity. And, of course, she will pay one last visit to her library. She will walk with Acharya down the long line of heavy, lacquered chests, now all sealed and ready. She will run her hand over the carved wood, a silent farewell to the physical collection she has so painstakingly assembled. She will give her nervous librarian a final, reassuring smile, and perhaps another terrible joke about the sleep-inducing properties of formal logic. The major historical fact that frames this entire endeavor is the sheer scale and complexity of such an imperial tour. This was not a simple trip. It was the movement of a small city. It included soldiers, administrators, clerks, servants, cooks, priests, nobles, and in this case, a mobile university. The logistics of coordinating supplies, security, and accommodation for a group of this size, traveling for weeks on end, were staggering. It was a demonstration of the empire's organizational power, an immense wealth dot as the sun's first rays finally break over the horizon. Casting a golden light over the city, the Empress takes one last deep breath of the cool morning air. She is ready. The quiet observer on the balcony has absorbed the peace of the dawn, and she will carry it with her, a hidden shield, through the noise and demands of the day ahead. The story of this one day in Pataliputra is ending, but the larger story, the journey to Ujjain, is just about to begin. The uncertainties of such a journey, from weather to politics, were immense, and even the most powerful ruler could not control everything. She is stepping out of her fortress of stone and into the unpredictable flow of the world. The day proceeds not as a series of meetings, but as a current of finality, a slow, stately tour of conclusion. Devika, once again adorned in the full weight of her imperial self, moves through the palace, a quiet center of purpose in a world of controlled last-minute bustle. You follow her first to the kitchens, a vast complex of courtyards and chambers filled with the roar of fires and the shouting of cooks. Here, the logistics of the journey are rendered in stark, edible terms. Mountains of flour are being packed into sacks. Enormous clay jars of oil and ghee are being sealed with wax, and there are enough dried lentils piled in one corner to fuel a philosophical debate for a month. The head of the household, a man with a perpetually flour-dusted eyebrow, assures her that the supplies are more than adequate. The Empress nods, her gaze taking in the sheer scale of the operation, the invisible work that keeps the visible empire on its feet. Next, the armory. The air here is sharp with the smell of polished metal and oiled leather. Racks of spears stand in perfect glittering rows. Shields, their surfaces polished to a mirror shine, are stacked like giant coins. The captain of the guard, a man whose muscles seem to have muscles, walks with her, explaining the deployment of the sentries, the rotation of the watch, the defensive posture of the caravan on the march. She listens, her questions few but precise. She is not a general, but she understands that her library of poetry can only travel under the protection of very sharp steel. Her presence here is a ritual, a reminder to the soldiers of who and what they are protecting. Then she visits the small temple within the palace walls. The air is thick with the scent of incense, marigolds, and devotion. Here, she makes a final offering, a bowl of rice, and a prayer for a safe journey. She kneels before the statue of Vishnu, the preserver, the deity her dynasty favors. The priests chant the ancient hymns, their voices a low, hypnotic drone. It is a moment of public piety, but also for her a moment of genuine, private hope. The exact prayers and personal rituals an empress might have performed before such a momentous undertaking are, of course, a matter of speculation for historians. But the act of seeking divine favor was an indispensable part of the public performance of power. Before one of the largest carts, the one carrying Aripada's precious astronomical texts, she pauses. She produces a small, beautifully carved wooden elephant, no bigger than her palm. It is an image of Ganesha, the remover of obstacles. She tucks the small totem into a secure crevice in the cart's frame, a private appeal to a god known for clearing the path ahead. A small, personal piece of magic to protect a universe of logic. Finally, she returns to the western courtyard, to the library. The scene is transformed from the organized chaos of yesterday. The courtyard is quiet, almost empty. The dozens of heavy carts stand in neat, silent rows. The great wooden chests are all closed, their lacquered surfaces gleaming. In the afternoon sun, they are sealed. The work is done. Acharya stands beside the lead cart, his hands clasped behind his back. He looks like a man who has just been told his favorite scroll has a typo he missed. He is radiating a level of anxiety, so pure it could almost be considered a form of art. Devika approaches him, her footsteps echoing in the quiet space. "Acharya," she says, her voice soft. He bows low. "Your Majesty, it is done. Every text is packed. Every seal is in place. The catalog has been triplicated." He looks at the silent carts as if they are sleeping giants that might wake at any moment and complain about their accommodations. She places a hand on his shoulder, a simple grounding gesture. "You have done remarkable work," she says. "The knowledge of our age is safe because of your care." The librarian visibly swells with pride, his anxiety momentarily forgotten, replaced by a flush of profound satisfaction. She looks at the long line of carts, this magnificent, absurd, wonderful caravan of thought. It was a perfectly sensible, completely ludicrous, magnificent idea. And tomorrow it would begin to move. The final evening in the palace is quieter than any that have come before. The usual gentle hum of life has been replaced by a deep, anticipatory stillness. Most of the court has already retired, knowing the morning will bring an early, chaotic start. The palace suddenly feels both cavernously empty and full of boxes. It's the ancient art of moving house, a feeling that transcends time and status. The astrologers, after much consultation of their charts and the heavens, had declared the hour of dawn to be the most auspicious for departure, which was a relief to everyone, especially, you suspect, the astrologers who would have been in a difficult position had the stars suggested staying home. Devika is in her chamber for the last time. The room is the same, but it feels different, like a place already becoming a memory. The handmaidens have performed their evening ritual, the disassembly of the Empress, but tonight it was quicker, more subdued. The heavy jewelry is packed. The finest silks are folded away for the journey. Tonight she lies on her simple mat, the scent of calming frankincense, a special preparation for the night before travel, perfuming the air. The small, peculiar cultural habit of using scent to manage the soul seems to be a recurring theme in her life. She does not get up to consult her little bag of divinatory objects. But there is no need. The time for questioning and seeking signs is over. The path, for better or worse, is now set. The great historical machine of the imperial tour is in motion, and she is at its heart. Whether she truly believed that the stars dictated her fate, or if she simply understood the political necessity of appearing to, is a question historians can debate forever, but tonight it doesn't matter. The decision is made. Through the archway, the night is a soft, deep black. There are no city lights to look at, no music drifting from a distant pavilion. There is only the profound quiet of a world on the cusp of a great movement. She thinks of the road. She can almost feel the gentle rocking of a palanquin, hear the creak of the cartwheels, the low calls of the drivers, the steady, rhythmic tramp of the guards' feet. She imagines the first sunrise on the road, watching it not from a stone balcony, but from a silk tent. The air tasting of dust and distance and freedom. Her journey is not just a line on a map from Pataliputra to Ujjain. It is a departure from the known. She is leaving this fortress of stone, this perfectly regulated world of bells and rituals, and stepping into the unpredictable flow of the country itself. She is taking her most precious possession, the thoughts and dreams of a civilization, and setting it loose upon the world. She closes her eyes, ready to trade a palace of stone for a kingdom of dust and stars. She lets the deep, peaceful silence of the chamber envelop her one last time. And now the day is truly done. The Empress sleeps. The palace sleeps. The city sleeps, and it is time for you to sleep as well. Let the story of her day dissolve, its images fading like the last light of dusk. Release the details, the weight of the gold, the scent of the jasmine, the clicking of the cowrie shells. Let them all drift away, becoming soft, indistinct clouds in the quiet sky of your mind. There are no more tasks to complete, no more agendas to follow. The journey of this story has reached its peaceful final destination. There's nothing left to do but rest. Feel the gentle rhythm of your own breath, a slow, steady, quiet tide, pulling you further and further away from the shores of waking. Thought, the cool, dark river of sleep is here to carry you. Let it hold you, let it soothe you. Allow yourself to float, to drift, to be at peace. There is only this moment, this quiet, this deep, profound calm. Sleep now. Sleep well.